sporazum parafiran je 21. novembra 1995. godine u američkom gradu Daytonu, a potpisan 14. decembra iste godine u Parizu. Sporazum je stavio tačku na gotovo 4 godine rata i razaranja u Bosni i Hercegovini i otvorio prostor za dugotrajni i zahtjevni proces obnove i pomirenja. Unatoč izazovima i političkim nesuglasicama u Bosni i Hercegovini danas vlada mir, što je i najvažnije nasljeđe Daytonskog mirovnog sporazuma. Pozivam vas da na početku ove večeri poslušamo kamerni orkestar Sarajevske filharmonije, koji će u povodu 25. godišnjice Daytona izvesti 25. simfoniju Wolfganga Amadeusa Mozarta. Vaše ekscelencije, dame i gospodo, cijenjena publiko, još jednom vas pozdravljamo iz Sarajevske vijećnice gdje je u toku program obilježavanja 25. godišnjice potpisivanja Daytonskog mirovnog sporazuma. Nakon koncerta kamernog orkestra Sarajevske filharmonije zamolit ću gospodina Valentina Incka, visokog predstavnika, da nam se obrati. Izvolite.
Poštovani gledatelji, kolege iz diplomatskog zbora i svi prijatelji Bosne i Hercegovine. Željeli smo ovu važnu obljetnicu proslaviti baš 14. decembra, kad je u Parizu potpisan sporazum koji je ranije dogovoren 21. novembra u Daytonu, Ohio, ali zbog tehničnih razloga to radimo danas. Nakon oko 30 pokušaja da se zaustavi rat, tek je Daytonski sporazum donio uspjeh te mir u Bosni i Hercegovini. A mir je dragocen. Koliko je dragocen vidimo i ako pogledamo razna križna žarišta u svijetu, recimo Nagorno Karabah ili Bliski istok, ili ovdje izbjegličku krizu u ovoj zemlji koja je kao posljedica nastala nestabilnosti, ali koju osjećamo i u Bosni i Hercegovini. Danas je prilika i da zahvalim svim građanima koji prate ovaj događaj i svim građanima želim u Bosni i Hercegovini čestitati 25. godišnjicu mira. Zahvaljujem svima za njihov lični i svakodnevni doprinos izgradnji suživota, mira i napretka zemlje. Zahvaljujem i svim sadašnjim i bivšim saradnicima OHR-a, jer bez njih bi taj uspjeh ne bi bio mogućan. Zahvaljujem i onim političarima i u Bosni i Hercegovini koji su, bez obzira na političke razlike i sukobe, baštinili ovo najvrednije, a to je mir u Bosni i Hercegovini. Na kraju, moja zahvala ide i kolegima u međunarodnoj zajednici koji su zajedno sa nama u Uredu visokog predstavnika strpljivo gradili bolju Bosnu i Hercegovinu. A jednog saradnika OHR-a ćemo vidjeti kasnije. To je premijer-ministar Španije, Pedro Sanchez, koji je radio ovdje u Sarajevu 2 godine, Pedro Sanchez. Želim i da se prisjetim naših poginulih kolega, ambasadora Gerda Wagnera, Charles Morpeta, Lee Melnika, Thomasa Reinharda i Jürgena Schaufa. Oni su poginuli 17. septembra 1997. godine u jednoj helikopterskoj nesreći. A jedan od njemačkih kolega bio je prvi dan na poslu. To je bilo kod Prokoškog jezera 17. septembra. Dragi prijatelji, Dayton je omogućio 2 stvari. Prvo mir, a drugo da imamo jednu Bosnu i Hercegovinu, a koja je poslije Daytona dobila novo unutrašnje uređenje sa entitetima i sa kantonima. Imamo jednu Bosnu i Hercegovinu za sve, gdje ima mjesta za sve, a kao što znate, kad čelijad nije besna, kuća nije tesna. Ali mir je samo početak. Treba da zajedno gradimo dalje. Tu smo svi da to učinimo. Hvala vam.
Hvala lijepo gospodine Incko. Sada ću zamoliti da nam se obrati gospođa Bisera Turković, ministrica vanjskih poslova Bosne i Hercegovine. Izvolite.
Uvažene ekscelencije, dame i gospodo, prije 25 godina u Parizu je potpisan mirovni sporazum koji je prekinuo najveće stradanje ljudi na evropskom tlu nakon Drugog svjetskog rata i zaustavio je uništavanje naše zemlje. Sporazum je definisao buduće uređenje i uspostavio društveno-politički život Bosne i Hercegovine. U 25 godina koje su iza nas, uz pomoć međunarodne zajednice učinjeno je mnogo i možemo slobodno reći da je Daytonski mirovni sporazum velikim dijelom ispunio svoju prvobitnu zadaću. Očuvao je mir. Bosna i Hercegovina danas se nalazi na razmeđi između teške prošlosti i bolje budućnosti. Raduje nas angažman naših prijatelja koji ulažu napore kako bi naša zemlja nastavila integracijske procese koje smo usvojili kroz naše strateške dokumente. Želim da zahvalim svima onima koji su dali svoj doprinos u izgradnji i obnovi Bosne i Hercegovine. Želim i da se obavežemo da ćemo još više i snažnije raditi kako bi Bosna i Hercegovina postala moderna, prosperitetna evropska zemlja u kojoj će svi građani imati jednaka prava i jednake mogućnosti.
Okvir koji je postavio temelj mira i osigurao put do pomirenja kako bi Bosna i Hercegovina postala funkcionalno demokratsko društvo. To je bio primarni cilj Daytona. Tokom 25 godina kancelarija visokog predstavnika bila je uporan predvodnik toga. Sporazum je ostvario te ciljeve. Održao je mir i omogućio Bosni i Hercegovini da krene putem ka Evropskoj uniji. Ali sada je vrijeme da se naprave naredni koraci, ključni za budućnost. Kako bismo to uradili, moramo unaprijediti sporazum, jer namjena nikada nije bila da bude vječan. Njegovi nedostaci moraju i mogu biti popravljeni. Mladi ljudi koji su istinska snaga ove zemlje ne žele i dalje biti zarobljeni u prošlosti. Njima je daleko važnija Bosna i Hercegovina 2030. od Bosne i Hercegovine 1995. Građani zaslužuju svjetliju budućnost u stabilnoj, prosperitetnoj i demokratskoj Bosni i Hercegovini, članici Euroatlantske zajednice. Sjedinjene Američke Države će iz dana u dan podržavati njihova zalaganja da ovu viziju pretvore u stvarnost.
Zahvaljujem ambasadoru Nelsonu. A sa nama je večeras, dame i gospodo, cijenjena publiko, Xavier Ruar, zamjenik šefa misije ambasade Republike Francuske u Bosni i Hercegovini, a u ime ambasadorice Christine Dudik. Izvolite.
Francuska ambasadorica nažalost nije mogla doći danas, ali mi je povjerila da prenesem njenu poruku. Ta poruka je: bilo mi je zadovoljstvo da zajedno sa ministricom vanjskih poslova Biserom Turković, visokim predstavnikom Valentinom Inskom i ambasadorom Sjedinjenih Američkih Država Erikom Nelsonom otvorim događaj koji je organizovao OHR povodom obilježavanja 25. godišnjice mirovnog sporazuma parafiranog u Daytonu a potpisanog 14. decembra 1995. u Parizu, koji je okončao najkrvaviji sukob u Evropi nakon Drugog svjetskog rata, kao što je naglasio naš ministar vanjskih poslova Jean-Yves Le Drian u videoporuci upućenog povodom ovog događaja. Najveća zasluga tog sporazuma bila je što je donio trajni mir u Bosnu i Herzegovinu. Već 25 godina, ali nažalost i dalje su potrebni napori da se ostvari iskreno pomirenje, što se naročito ogleda kroz odavanje počasti svim žrtvama, odbijanje revizionizma u istoriji i veličanja ratnih zločinaca. To je posebno važno u zemlji koja je izrazila želju da se priključi Evropskoj uniji i dijeli njene vrijednosti. 25 godina nakon tog mirovnog sporazuma vrijeme je da se Bosna i Herzegovina odlučno okrene prema zajedničkoj budućnosti vodzenoj perspektivom njenog priključenja Evropskoj uniji, što podržava velika većina njenih građana, kao i da usvoji i primjeni akcioni plan za ispunjavanje 14 ključnih prioriteta iz mišljenja Evropske unije iz 2019. Bosna i Herzegovina može računati na podršku Francuske i Evropske unije u radu na reformama, posebno kroz značajnu financijsku pomoć koju je Evropska unija dodijelila Zapadnom Balkanu, u kojoj Francuska učestvuje sa oko 20%, kao i kroz rastući bilateralni angažman, naročito u korist pomirenja putem regionalnog ureda za saradnju mladih, kojeg podržavaju Francuska i Njemačka radi postičanja na pomirenje mladih generacija.
Hvala lijepo, gospodine Ruar. A sada ću za obraćanje zamoliti gospodina Johana Sattlera, šefa delegacije Evropske unije u Bosni i Hercegovini i specijalnog predstavnika Evropske unije u našoj zemlji. Izvolite.
Mir dobiva šansu. Kraj rata. Tako su glasili naslovnice iz decembra 1995. godine, nakon potpisivanja sporazuma koji je zaustavio strašno stradanje u ovoj zemlji i donio mir. Danas, kada slavimo 25 godina mira, krajnje je vrijeme da pričamo o boljoj sadašnjosti i budućnosti. Kao što je Helmut Kohl rekao na potpisivanju Daytonskog sporazuma u Parizu, mir mora biti više od odsudstva rata. Više od onoga, kako ovdje kažu, samo nek ne puca. To nije i nije smije biti dovoljno. Građane zaslužuje i traži život bez straha, siromaštva i stalnih političkih kriza. Mladi ne žele biti zaglavljeni u prošlosti. žele funkcionalnu državu, članicu EU. To su mi jučer u Mostaru rekli Altla, Vetran, Vladimir i Elvir. To je potvrdilo i naše istraživanja. Mladi ne strahuju od novog konflikta. Mladi također misle da članstvo u EU osigurava dugoročan mir. Evropske integracije mogu pomoći ovoj zemlji da riješi anomalije Daytonskog sistema. Vlasti moraju napraviti odlučnije korake ka tom cilju i to čim prije. Uvjereni smo da je značajan korak može i treba ostvariti naredne godine na prelasku iz postkonfliktne faze u fazu pristupanja EU, od Daytona ka Briselu. Europa je već tu. Sada je vrijeme za EU. Živjela Bosna i Hercegovina.
Zahvaljujem gospodinu Sattleru i sada pozivam gospodina Danijela Petrovića, izvršnog direktora fondacije Agora, da nam se obrati.
Danas, nakon 25 godina od uspostavljanja mira u zemlji dva entiteta i jednog distrikta, u zemlji tri ravnopravna naroda koja govore tri ravnopravna jezika, imam priliku da iznesem sve ono što dugo držim u sebi. Imam snažnu potrebu i nagon koji se u meni probudi svaki put kada čujem govor mržnje i ono najtužnije, govor koji dolazi iz usta mladih građana ove zemlje. Zar ja, rođen nakon rata, koji pripadam mladima na kojima ostaje budućnost, treba da se osvrćem u prošlost ne gledajući na sutra? Zar ja, koji pripadam mladima koji kreiraju budućnost ove zemlje, ne trebam razgovarati, ne dijeliti ideje i viziju sa mladima koji nisu iste vjere ili nacije kao ja? Zar da prošlost koristimo kao oružje, a ne kao priliku za lekciju koja je svima nama bila bolna? Nećemo da sporimo činjenicu stradanja bilo kog naroda. Svi su stradali, svi su gubili živote, ali zločine su činili pojedinci, a ne nacije. I nećemo generalizovati. Nemamo pravo da generalizujemo. Do kada ćemo ljude dijeliti po boji kože, jeziku koji govore ili naciji kojoj pripadaju? Do kada ćemo slijepi hodati saplićući se o sami sebe? Kada ćemo otvoriti oči, staviti crtu na prošlost i krenuti graditi budućnost? Kada ćemo početi graditi sutra, za sebe, za sve buduće generacije koje bi trebalo da žive u Bosni i Hercegovini i da grade Bosnu i Hercegovinu? Neću da stojim i krivim bilo koga. Šta će nam donijeti govor mržnje? Obilježavat ćemo datume, odavat ćemo počast stradalima, ali ćemo graditi budućnost. Jedino uz sigurnu budućnost i sva njihova stradanja dobijaju višu svrhu. Hoću da se borim zajedno sa svojim vršnjacima za budućnost svakog čovjeka koji živi ovdje i u Brčko distriktu i u Republici Srpskoj i u Federaciji Bosne i Hercegovine. Hoću da gledam na sutra i da mislim o onome što nas čeka ovdje za 10 godina. Hajde da pričamo jezikom mira. Hajde da učimo jedni od drugih. Hajde da zajedno budemo ponosni na ovu zemlju koja ima šta da ponudi, a ne samo da bude stanica do neke evropske zemlje u kojoj naši mladi traže budućnost. Hajde da zagrlimo mir. Ujedinimo se. Ti, mladi čovječe, koji si rođen poslije rata, na tebi ostaje svijet. Na meni ostaje svijet i na svakom od nas. Znam da možemo.
Hvala puno. Bio je to Danijel Petrović, izvršni direktor fondacije Agora i predstavnik mladih na kojima svijet zaista ostaje. U nastavku, poštovani gledatelji, poštovani gosti, pogledat ćemo više od 20 snimljenih videoporuka kojima su se građankama i građanima Bosne i Hercegovine obratili bivši i sadašnji državni i međunarodni zvaničnici, svi zajedno prijatelji Bosne i Hercegovine.
Ladies and gentlemen, a quarter of a century has passed since the Dayton Peace Accords brought nearly 4 years of bloodshed and destruction in Bosnia-Herzegovina to an end, and created a Bosnia-Herzegovina for all, a Bosnia-Herzegovina for all. But achieving peace was not self-evident, as Richard Holbrooke, the chief negotiator in Dayton, said in a Washington Post article in 2008. According to Holbrooke, there were more than 30 failed ceasefires before Dayton, and in a certain moment, some NATO officials thought that their troops would regularly patrol the inter-entity boundary line, like in Korea. However, the guns in Bosnia fell silent after a war that killed at least 100,000 people and left more than 2 million homeless. When we consider what has been achieved, let us not forget that Dayton has kept the peace for the last 25 years. This is not obvious, and peace must be recognized. Recognized because there are regions in the world where people do not remember a longer period of peace, be it in the Middle East, in Kashmir, or elsewhere. Or if we take World War I, World War II, there were only 20 years of peace. However, peace is not the end. It is only the beginning. It must be cherished. In the first decade after Dayton, the real progress was made. Hundreds of thousands of citizens were able to return to their homes. A strong currency was successfully introduced, along with biometric BiH passports and ID cards, common license plates, the flag and the anthem, and let us not forget that also a unified BiH football league was established. An indirect tax system far ahead of anything in the region was created, and reforms were also made to the police and the judicial system. The BiH armed forces were established and have distinguished themselves in flood relief and other activities at home, as well as serving in international peacekeeping deployments around the world. The office of the High Representative was a major driver of these reforms. The bomb powers, deriving directly from Annex 10 of the General Framework for Peace, which were endorsed by the Peace Implementation Council at the Bonn meeting and reaffirmed by the UN Security Council on a regular basis since 1997, the bomb powers were essential and effective during the first phase of recovery, and they were deployed judiciously by my predecessors, in a way that made it possible to provide Bosnia and Herzegovina with the institutional and legal infrastructure required to function as a modern democracy. As we look back on the last quarter of a century, I want to pay tribute to Carl Bildt, Carlos Westendorp, Wolfgang Petritsch, Christian Schwarz-Schilling, Miroslav Lajčák, and of course the late Paddy Ashdown for the work they did on behalf of the people of Bosnia and Herzegovina. OHR was at the cutting edge of post-war recovery. But the determination came from the people. They demanded, and they continue to demand, the right to live in a state that is based on rule of law. They demand to live in a society that respects all citizens, that provides schools and hospitals and public amenities and offers decent jobs and economic opportunities. Richard Holbrooke, in his article, also said that the world has more or less turned its back on Bosnia. This is true to a certain extent, as there are more recent and bigger conflicts which need to be attended by the international community. But in the testimony that follows, heads of state, heads of government, high representatives, and distinguished friends of Bosnia and Herzegovina will describe how they and the countries and organizations they represent are seeking and have thought to work with the people of Bosnia and Herzegovina. These messages also reconfirm that the people of this country are not forgotten, that they are not alone.
I'm honored to join all of you today in commemorating the 25th anniversary of the Dayton Accords and the end of the years of ethnic violence in Bosnia and Herzegovina. I'd like to thank Ambassador Insko and everyone in the Office of the High Representative for organizing this event and for their continued work to build a shared and peaceful future for all the people of Bosnia and Herzegovina. I'll always believe that what we accomplished with the NATO campaign and the hard bargaining at Dayton afterward was some of the most important work of my presidency. I still mourn that it took us as long as it did to unify all of Bosnia's friends to stop the killing, and that it took the awful genocide of Srebrenica to stir all the NATO members to action. But now, 25 years later, I am more grateful that the peace we negotiated at Dayton is held. The nightmare you endured then has never returned. And the credit for that achievement belongs to all the people of all backgrounds who over 25 years have continued to make a choice every day that they want their children and grandchildren to grow up without the shadow of bloodshed and hatred. Look, we all know there's still much more to be done. We know the deep internal tensions that remain. We know there is still far too little economic opportunity, especially for young people. We know the last decade has seen a steady return of hardline nationalism, disrespect for the rule of law, dangerous rhetoric among politicians who inflame the old tensions to score short-term political gains. And we know that all too often, the Federation's constituent parts have become an excuse and a means to keep anything from happening on too many fronts. At the time the Dayton Accords were reached, we knew and said it then that they represented a beginning, not an end. Reconciliation is not a finite process. It's something you must begin again and again, day after day, year after year. As President Izetbegovic once said, even the most imperfect peace is better than the continuation of war. He was right then and right today. So on this anniversary, remember that Bosnia and Herzegovina have many friends all around the world, that your nation has many friends, especially in the United States, and that we're all pulling hard for you to solve the challenges and seize the opportunities of the moment. We want you to succeed, and we'll stand with you as long as you continue the hard work of putting the conflicts of the past behind you with an ever-deepening commitment to inclusion, cooperation and decision-making, to individual and minority rights, and to the rule of law. Doing those things will help to break the political gridlock and will unleash many new opportunities, including taking your eventual place in NATO, the European community, the larger international community, and attracting more investment and more opportunity. To me, the most important lesson of the last 25 years is a simple acknowledgement. Society works best when everyone's interest and worth is taken into account, when everyone is empowered with a chance to build their own lives and that of their families and communities, when everyone's voice is heard, and when cooperation triumphs over conflict. All of these things based on the understanding that our differences matter a lot. They make life interesting and important, but our common humanity matters much, much more. So today, I hope you'll celebrate the fact that a whole generation has grown up free from the horrors of war. Never forget that extraordinary achievement as you confront the challenges of today and tomorrow. And may it give you a renewed sense of determination to build a future of progress and prosperity and inclusion.
Il y a 25 ans, les accords de paix paraphés à Dayton puis signés à Paris mettaient fin au conflit le plus meurtrier que l'Europe ait connu depuis la Seconde Guerre mondiale. La France n'oublie pas que 100 000 personnes ont perdu la vie au cours du conflit en Bosnie-Herzégovine. Au nom de la France et du peuple français, je souhaite rendre hommage à toutes les victimes et à toutes celles et ceux qui ont œuvré avec détermination pour faire taire les armes. J'ai une pensée toute particulière pour les 84 militaires français qui ont payé de leur vie, leur engagement, au nom de la France, au service de la paix. Les accords de Dayton-Paris ont mis fin au combat et instauré une paix durable. C'est là leur principal mérite. Toutefois, si la Bosnie-Herzégovine vit en paix depuis 25 ans, la page de l'après-guerre n'a pas été encore totalement tournée. Des progrès importants ont été accomplis, mais il reste des efforts à consentir pour parvenir à une véritable réconciliation qui permettra à tous les citoyens et à toutes les communautés de vivre ensemble, harmonieusement, en Bosnie-Herzégovine. Le passé doit être pleinement reconnu par tous. Il n'y a aucune place pour le révisionnisme historique ou la glorification de criminels de guerre condamnés par la justice. C'est vrai notamment dans un pays et dans une région qui ont exprimé leur souhait d'adhérer à l'Union européenne et donc à ses valeurs. 25 ans après ces accords de paix, il convient de se tourner résolument vers cet avenir commun que constitue la perspective d'adhésion à l'Union européenne. Elle est soutenue par une très large majorité des citoyens de Bosnie-Herzégovine. Il y a eu des avancées ces derniers mois. Je tiens notamment à saluer l'accord sur les élections à Mostar. Elle a ouvert la voie à l'organisation d'élections municipales prévues le 20 décembre pour la première fois depuis 12 ans. Mais des défis d'ampleur doivent toutefois être relevés pour que la Bosnie-Herzégovine puisse progresser dans son cheminement européen. La Commission européenne a donné une feuille de route précise dans son avis de mai 2019. Il appartient aux responsables de Bosnie-Herzégovine d'entreprendre des réformes profondes pour consolider l'état de droit, mais aussi pour améliorer la fonctionnalité de l'État central. La participation aux institutions européennes suppose des États fortement structurés et un fonctionnement institutionnel efficace. La Bosnie-Herzégovine peut compter sur l'engagement de la France et de l'Union européenne pour soutenir ses réformes et son développement économique et social. L'Union européenne a consenti cette année un effort très substantiel de plus de 3 milliards d'euros. Il va aider les pays des Balkans occidentaux à faire face à la crise sanitaire. S'y ajouteront les 9 milliards d'euros de son plan économique et d'investissement pour la région. Sur un plan bilatéral, la France se réinvestit dans les Balkans. J'en veux pour preuve plusieurs engagements concrets. Notre engagement en faveur du dialogue entre le Kosovo et la Serbie, le déploiement des activités de l'Agence française de développement dans la région, notre soutien à l'Office régional de coopération pour la jeunesse, l'initiative que nous portons avec l'Allemagne pour lutter contre les trafics d'armes légères dans la région, ce qui est un aspect de la lutte contre le terrorisme. Mesdames et messieurs, la Bosnie-Herzégovine appartient à l'Europe, géographiquement, historiquement et culturellement. Son avenir est européen. Il lui appartient de le saisir pleinement. Notre soutien lui est acquis pour progresser dans cette voie de paix et de prospérité. C'est le plus bel hommage que nous pourrons rendre aux efforts de paix qui ont été conclus à Dayton et à Paris il y a 25 ans. Je vous remercie.
Ladies and gentlemen, it has been 25 years since the Dayton Peace Agreement was reached. It ended the hostilities taking place in Bosnia and Herzegovina between 1992 and 1995, most often remembered for the numerous of killed and displaced people, the coining of term ethnic cleansing, and the Srebrenica genocide, the worst human atrocity on European soil since the World War II. We are here today to mark this immensely important anniversary and to briefly reflect on what this peace agreement has brought to all of us. In spite of the persistent ongoing debates about the Accord successes and failures, we can all agree it had a profound effect on shaping the current Bosnian and Herzegovinian society. It provided a minimum sense of security and prospects for a safe political transition for all citizens of our country. Dayton Accords are first and foremost a peace agreement that established a general framework for people to begin rebuilding their lives. Things that today seem normal were groundbreaking at the time of their adoption. Many reforms undertaken to implement the peace agreement brought a number of improvements to locals' life. I will mention only a couple of examples, like the creation of the Central Bank of Bosnia and Herzegovina, agreement on launching a single currency in Bosnia and Herzegovina, known as the convertible bank, introducing uniform license plates, coat of arms, and national flag, the establishment of the National Indirect Taxation Authority, the successful integration of intelligence services, the adoption of the law on defense, which formally initiated the process of unification of previously divided military structures, and many other notable achievements with the help of the OHR and international judges. Even though there are many indicators of backsliding in our recent societal developments, some things have changed for the better. Our country has firmly committed to new European Union-led reform initiatives, and we made some significant progresses towards becoming a full-fledged candidate state. We deepened our political dialogue and cooperation with NATO and had some significant progress towards activating Bosnia-Herzegovina's membership action plan. Ladies and gentlemen, the upcoming weekend marks the 25th anniversary of the Dayton Peace Agreement in Bosnia and Herzegovina. It stopped the war that had taken around 200,000 lives and generated 2 million refugees, many of whom have yet to be fully repatriated, and some who decided never to return to Bosnia and Herzegovina. Thought widespread fighting has stopped. Some ethnic tension have endured and continue to exist till this day. Dayton Peace Agreement helped to maintain peace over the last 25 years, which is perhaps its greatest achievement. Although it helped to positively shape the post-conflict Bosnia and Herzegovinian society, it was never meant to be a permanent solution. It unintentionally left some open wounds and has evoked the need for systematic constitutional changes, as well as the necessity for changing election provisions in light of the Sejdić-Finci group of ruling by the European Court of Human Rights. It is evident to all of us that progress in Bosnia and Herzegovina can only be achieved by continuously working together on projects and initiatives that support the same universal human rights values and honor the common good, rather than by those that promote divisive politics and make people confront one another. I personally will invest my time and efforts to work on building a shared vision of a functional and prosperous Bosnia and Herzegovina, a state working in the interests of all its citizens as a fully integrated member of Euro-Atlantic family. I cordially invite you all to join me in this noble quest. Thank you for your kind attention.
This month marks 25 years since the Dayton Peace Agreement ended an intense conflict that was devastating lives and communities in Bosnia and Herzegovina. This important anniversary is an occasion to redouble our commitment to peace and reconciliation, sustainable development and human rights for all. Building a future of peace requires dealing with the past. It means acknowledging the horrific crimes that were committed during the war. These crimes should never be forgotten, nor should the ideology of the perpetrators be celebrated. Hate speech or narratives of mistrust and fear have no place in an inclusive, peaceful Bosnia and Herzegovina. Political, religious and community leaders, educators, civil society, the media and all the people of Bosnia and Herzegovina have a critical part to play in moving forward together from a difficult past. This requires empathy, understanding and respect. As we face the unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic, let us come together to build a more just, green and resilient Bosnia and Herzegovina. To the youth in the country, I say, no contribution will be as valuable as yours. Your work in building trust today will set the foundations for security and prosperity tomorrow. Get involved and be agents for the change you want to see. The United Nations will continue to work with all the people of Bosnia and Herzegovina for a peaceful, sustainable future, and I thank you.
"25 years ago, the Dayton Peace Agreement was signed. It brought an end to one of the most painful experiences in the European continent's recent history, a devastating war that led to immense human loss and suffering. Hundreds of thousands of people were forced to flee their homes, some forever. After 3.5 years of chaos, horror and sorrow, this treaty brought hope for a durable peace and gave the citizens and peoples of Bosnia and Herzegovina a sense of security and stability. Much has happened since 1995. Little by little, the country has transformed from a war-torn state to a fully fledged member of the international community, including within the Council of Europe family, which it joined in 2002. At the time, Council of Europe member states understood that peace and stability in Bosnia and Herzegovina would be reinforced by stronger links with European institutions and the values that they represent. Human rights, democracy and the rule of law would clear a safer road to a better future. This remains true today, not just for Bosnia and Herzegovina, but for all countries in Europe, at a time when our values are under increased attack. It is up to all of us, citizens, governments, and international organizations, to redouble our efforts, build bridges, and foster mutual understanding and constructive interaction in the Council of Europe. Bosnia and Herzegovina will always find a willing partner, and its efforts to ensure peace based on mutual respect and human dignity. For the sake of young people and future generations, we must keep working for a society where people can live together, united in diversity, in an environment that offers hope, prosperity, and stability. We must continue to provide them with the competencies they need to participate actively in a democratic culture and to further promote and protect human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. We must keep the promise.
"25 years ago, the Dayton Peace Agreement brought an end to nearly 4 years of brutal war in Bosnia and Herzegovina. The presence of NATO troops played a central role in bringing the warring parties to the negotiating table. Once the agreement was signed, NATO forces oversaw its implementation, and we have remained on the ground ever since to help maintain peace and security in the Western Balkans. We have supported the government of Bosnia and Herzegovina to reform its security institutions. One of the most significant achievements has been the creation of the Joint Armed Forces. At the end of the war, there were more than 400,000 troops, bitterly divided between 3 armies. Today, there is a single professional army of around 10,000 soldiers and 5,000 reservists under a unified chain of command. Indeed, Bosnia and Herzegovina is now a security contributor, with its forces taking part in NATO's mission in Afghanistan. This is truly remarkable. It shows what is possible when difficult issues are tackled with ambition and a spirit of consensus. But 25 years on, there is still much work to be done. We cannot and must not return to the past. Compromise may be difficult, but it is vital if the citizens of this country are to have the lives they deserve. NATO will continue to support Bosnia and Herzegovina, but the future is in your own hands. With unity, determination, and with compromise, great things can be achieved. A quarter of a century after Dayton, it is time to recommit to peace, to reform, and to a prosperous future for all. Thank you.
Dear citizens of Bosnia and Herzegovina, I'm Edi Rama, Prime Minister of Albania, and I'm speaking to you today in my capacity as the 2020 Chairperson in Office of the OSCE, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. Almost 25 years ago, the general framework for peace in Bosnia and Herzegovina was negotiated in Dayton on 21st November and signed in Paris on 14th of December 1995, ending the bloodiest conflict on European soil since World War II. Bosnia and Herzegovina has come a long, long way since, and the OSCE has been proud to have been part of that journey. Our organization has played a very active role in Bosnia and Herzegovina by helping to implement the Dayton Peace Accords, bringing peace to the country, and supporting efforts to build a prosperous and democratic future. The architects of Dayton understood that to secure a durable peace, it was necessary to construct an environment to provide justice, foster reconciliation, and rebuild trust shattered by such conflict. Overcoming the terrible legacy of a tragic war has required incredible commitment and determination from all of you, the people and your elected leaders, all this way. By embracing mutual respect and tolerance, you have overcome countless obstacles to rebuild your lives and communities, making it possible to live, work, and also drink coffee again with those whom the conflict cast as enemies 25 years ago. With your passion and dedication, you have rebuilt institutions, reshaped the economy, and developed your democracy. I know, however, that divisions and social tensions still exist. Yes, they do. Divisive rhetoric, discrimination in education, hate crimes, and the slow processing of war crimes cases show there is more work to be done. And we note with sadness that more and more young people are simply choosing another path by leaving Bosnia and Herzegovina. Indeed, many of you are frustrated that there has not been such a progress that you have foreseen in building the future you all rightly hope and want to see. The truth is that building durable, comprehensive peace, it's a long process. It is a marathon, and not a sprint. This 25th anniversary of Dayton offers the opportunity to reflect on what has been accomplished, and based on that, to reflect on what can be done. And it's so important to see it as an opportunity to think about what you as citizens want to achieve in the next 25 years, in the next 50 years, and how you want to go about it. One thing is for sure, the OSCE mission to Bosnia and Herzegovina will stand by you just as it has stood for the past 25 years. It will continue to work throughout the country to support election process, assist returnees, promote reconciliation, justice, and human rights, and also to improve democratic institutions. It will continue to offer a helping hand whenever is needed to build a more democratic and prosperous future. Ladies and gentlemen, the successes you have achieved over the past 25 years are not to just be thrown away. They are truly inspirational. With that same spirit of drive and determination, you can tackle the challenges ahead, and you can build a Bosnia and Herzegovina that everyone is proud to call home.
Poštovani građani Bosne i Hercegovine, dame i gospodo, dragi prijatelji. Austrija i Bosna i Hercegovina njeguju dugotrajno prijateljstvo. Naše partnerstvo počiva na mnogo stubova, ali iznad svega na snažnom prijateljstvu među našim narodima. U protekle 2 decenije Austrija je primila oko 100.000 izbjeglica iz Bosne i Hercegovine. Mnogi od njih su ostali. Ponosan sam na narod Austrije koji im je otvorio svoje srce. Istovremeno sam zahvalan svim vrijednim Bosancima i Hercegovcima za njihov doprinos našoj zemlji. Austrija ima vitalan interes u našem susjedstvu, Zapadnom Balkanu. Mi želimo da ovaj region bude miran, stabilan i prosperitetan. Imajući to na umu, Austrija je dala značajan doprinos implementaciji Daytonskog mirovnog sporazuma. Što se tiče implementacije vojnog dijela Daytona, moja zemlja daje najveći doprinos vojnoj operaciji EUFOR-ovoj operaciji Altea, koja igra ključnu stabilizacijsku ulogu u vašoj zemlji. Sadašnji komandant general Reinhard Tričak je Austrijanac, kao što su bili i mnogi njegovi prethodnici. U pogledu provedbe civilnog dijela Daytona, 2 Austrijanca, Wolfgang Petrić i Valentin Inzko, imenovani su na funkciju visokog predstavnika međunarodne zajednice, a tu je i ambasador Johan Sattler na funkciji specijalnog predstavnika Europske unije. Proslava 25 godina Daytonskog mirovnog sporazuma prilika je da se podsjetimo na to koliko su mir i stabilnost vrijedni. Tragedije koje su se desile u Bosni i Hercegovini, kao i u drugim dijelovima Zapadnog Balkana, nalažu nam, a posebno to nalažu lokalnim političarima, da grade povjerenje i jačaju saradnju za dobrobit svih građana. To je obaveza prema svima koji su izgubili živote ili na drugi način stradali tokom rata. Vi, građani Bosne i Hercegovine, zaslužujete da živite skladno i u blagostanju. Razlike su važne samo onoliko koliko nas obogaćuju. Sada je vrijeme da se okrene novi list, da se razlike ostave po strani, da ljudi budu prioritet ispred politike, da počnete raditi zajedno i da Bosnu i Hercegovinu još više približite Europskoj uniji. Austrija će vam i dalje pomagati na tom putu. Hvala.
Ladies and gentlemen, I sincerely thank High Representative Valentin Inzko for inviting me to deliver a message on the occasion of the 25th anniversary of the Dayton Peace Agreement. Valentin, Slovenia appreciates your work in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Bosnia and Herzegovina is very close to our hearts and minds, and we follow the situation there very closely. I keep in regular contact with the political leaders of the country, both bilaterally and in the framework of the Brda Brioni process, which is celebrating its 10th anniversary. and I hope to host a meeting in Slovenia before the end of the year. 25 years ago, the Dayton Accords ended the war in Bosnia and Herzegovina. A great deal of effort has been invested since then to achieve lasting peace and prosperous development, but still not enough. Building sustainable peace is a very challenging task that demands wisdom, courage, and a sincere wish to overcome differences and divisions. Our own Slovenian experience has shown that no transition is easy, flawless, not fully just. We know how difficult it is to reconcile one's own demons of the past. In the case of Bosnia and Herzegovina, the wounds of war are even more difficult to heal, and we all feel the pain of those who suffered during the war. We should never forget. Yet, there is no better way to pay out respects to the victims of war than commit to lasting peace, stability, and reconciliation. I would like to take this opportunity to call on the leaders of Bosnia and Herzegovina, our friends, to come together and focus on the economic and social challenges faced by their country. All the challenges we face are also the challenges of Bosnia and Herzegovina. All the buzzwords of today, such as green transition, sustainable development, and others, are equally relevant for my country as they are for Bosnia and Herzegovina. Bosnia and Herzegovina is a wonderful country with a rich tradition and great potential. One day, sooner rather than later, I hope it will become a member of the European Union. But it is up to its political leadership to build confidence, invest more into reconciliation, and focus on matters truly important to its citizens, and in this way, show them the way forward. Slovenia will always, always stand by your side. I wish you all the best.
On the 25th anniversary of the Dayton Peace Agreement, I would like to take this opportunity to send warm greetings to the authorities and citizens of Bosnia and Herzegovina and congratulate them today as we celebrate the lasting peace achieved in 1995. Bosnia and Herzegovina and the Dayton Peace Agreement are special to me. I had the opportunity to live in Sarajevo and get to understand the history of your country, working precisely at the Office of the High Representative, the institution in charge of ensuring compliance with the agreement. I came back in 2015 for the 20th commemoration of the Ceremonija genocide, and this past July I had the occasion to address you during the commemoration of its 25th anniversary. The Dayton Peace Agreement was certainly difficult to draft, but it is among the most successful peace agreements, as it has enabled 25 years of lasting peace after a hard and painful conflict. It was the result of an unprecedented political compromise, thanks to the common understanding of a brutal past and the firm determination not to repeat it, as well as of large collaboration by the international community. Allow me at this point to show my deepest gratitude and respect for the peacekeeping missions and the sacrifice of its members, especially for those who died in the fulfillment of their duties, including 23 Spaniards. However, while indispensable, peace is not enough to modernize and build a better future for a country. Much has been accomplished during these past years, but we cannot underestimate the challenges ahead to further develop rule of law and a socioeconomic system that grants wider public freedoms, rights, and opportunities. Bosnia and Herzegovina needs to offer its citizens an alternative to emigration, an option to live safely in their own country and remain hopeful for a better future. This requires the will and determination to embark on the necessary reforms. Dear friends, Bosnia and Herzegovina is a European country with a European perspective and a roadmap towards the European Union. Last year, the European Council endorsed the Commission's opinion on the membership application, identifies 14 key priorities for the country in order to open accession negotiations. Although some important changes have been taking place this year, such as the electoral reform for Mostar, much work lies ahead, especially in the areas of rule of law, anti-corruption, and reconciliation. Spain understands well what a successful political transition entails, since we lived through the circumstances over 40 years ago. We needed to strive for political consensus, overlooking strong differences to reach reconciliation and build a modern country. This was made possible as a result of the contribution of all the Spanish political forces and territories, which led to the signing of a new democratic constitution and the modernization of the country. It was the starting point of one of the longest periods of prosperity in our history, and it allowed us to join the European Union family. I'm aware that the pandemic is creating more difficulties on the path to reforms. Rest assured that you are not alone in this fight. The European Union stands next to you and has arranged substantial aid programs for Bosnia and Herzegovina and the rest of the Western Balkans. Enlargement remains, no doubt, among the top priorities of the European Union, backed by clear programs, political instruments, and robust financial aid. Moving towards a European perspective requires strong political will to undertake considerable and difficult reforms. 25 years after the agreement was signed, some of its constitutional approaches and aspects need to be revisited and adapted to the European Union acquis. I'm convinced that you, as we did, can deliver an agreement of all political forces with courage, determination, and generosity, respecting the ethnic, cultural, and religious diversity of your beautiful country. In this regard, Bosnia and Herzegovina is not an exception either. Some of the most political and economically advanced countries in the world are not based on ethnic, cultural, or religious homogeneity. Quite the contrary, they are based on diversity and the sum of plurality. I assure you that the change you need to embrace are worth the effort. We will stand by your side. I wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
"25 years have passed since the end of a devastating war in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and their wounds are still visible today. We remember the tragedies of the past with the promise that never will let them happen again, and to celebrate the will and capacity to live peacefully together, and the will also to build a better future for all. That the future of Bosnia and Herzegovina lies in the European Union. This is our common goal and commitment. To achieve this objective, the political leadership of this country will have to take its responsibilities to act in order to make possible the reforms that the country needs. Becoming member of the European Union remains a key objective for the people of this country. More than 80% of the citizens support this purpose. On the last years, progress has been made in many fields toward building a stable and democratic Bosnia and Herzegovina, but at the same time, I have to recognize that journey is not over. A lot remains to be done. Governments, political leaders need to deliver better to their people. And people expect their elected representative to deliver. Failure to deliver on reforms will not only slow the path to the European Union, people will continue voting with their feet and leave the country. Let's use this anniversary to be a turning point to move from post-war to pre-accession, to accelerate the process and to move from Dayton to Brussels. There is 14 key priorities endorsed by the European Council in December last year, 1 year ago, that provide a roadmap setting up the reforms needed towards European Union accession. But for that, reform of the institutional and legal framework is needed. This has to be inclusive. This will require time and a broad national debate. The rejection of conflict, the rejection of hate and division, the acceptance of cooperation and reconciliation is central to the European Union and to our values, and so is for the Bosnia and Herzegovina and its people. History shows that reconciliation is a process, not an event. It's not something that happens overnight. It takes a process, an everyday work that needs to be reaffirmed persistently every day. But there is a big and enormous political challenge for all of you to win. The European Union will be at your side.
Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, dear citizens of Bosnia and Herzegovina, among all the things that human build, nothing is more valuable than bridges. The writer Ivo Andrić said, because bridges create connections. The Dayton Agreement, concluded 25 years ago, was a major diplomatic achievement. It ended a terrible war and brought peace to Bosnia and Herzegovina. The agreement was the result of firm action by the United States under President Clinton, in close cooperation with the European Union. It did not solve the conflicts in the Balkans, but it laid a foundation on which bridges could be built. Since then, and with the support of the High Representative and his office, Bosnia and Herzegovina has come a long way. Your country has made a decision to seek a future in Europe. It is today a potential candidate for membership in the European Union. And Germany strongly supports your European and transatlantic aspirations. Because we want to be bridge builders between all countries of the Balkans and the European Union. But for this to succeed, politicians in Bosnia and Herzegovina need to become bridge builders too. 25 years after Dayton, it is high time for a true conciliation and cooperation. In a country that wants to join the EU, there is no place for nationalist agitation, for denial of war crimes and the glorification of war criminals. All your leaders need to come together to launch reforms and weed out corruption. The so-called 14 key priorities laid out by the European Commission last year provide a clear roadmap. The rule of law and good governance are in the interest of your people and your businesses. Dear citizens of Bosnia and Herzegovina, the recent meeting within the Berlin process has demonstrated that positive change is happening in the Balkans. To continue on this path of reform and economic integration, we need strong political leadership in Sarajevo. I encourage you to put the ghost of the past to rest and to start building bridges. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to have the opportunity to speak to you all today, and in particular to my good friend Valentin Inzko. Today marks the 25th anniversary of the Dayton Peace Agreement. It is a chance to celebrate 25 years of peace following nearly 4 years of war, siege, ethnic cleansing and genocide within Europe's borders. Our thanks go to NATO and the United States for their work to make the agreement possible. But peace can never be taken for granted, and the Office of the High Representative also deserves praise for its vital efforts in ensuring a long-lasting commitment to peace. For any society to prosper, peace is essential, but more is needed than just peace alone. The people of Bosnia and Herzegovina deserve a society that is built on the rule of law and that respects human rights. A society where young people have opportunities to work and study. And a society where people trust that their leaders will do their utmost to ensure stability and refrain from nationalistic and divisive rhetoric. Stability in Bosnia and Herzegovina still remains fragile. And so the Office of the High Representative continues to play a vital role until the state of Bosnia and Herzegovina has fulfilled the necessary requirements. The time has come to turn the page. It is time for the leaders of Bosnia and Herzegovina to work on the necessary reforms, to improve the functionality of the state, and to make progress with regard to EU accession and full compliance with the fundamental values of the European Union. 2 years ago, I had the chance to visit Bosnia and Herzegovina together with my counterparts from Belgium and Luxembourg and see the beauty of your country for myself. And in the near future, I sincerely hope to see a Bosnia and Herzegovina that offers its people a vibrant, cohesive and peaceful society with maximum opportunities for its peaceful and resilient citizens. Thank you.
It is a privilege to address you on the 25th anniversary of the Dayton Peace Agreement. The Dayton Agreement brought much needed peace to the people of this country after years of bitter fighting. It ended the war and genocide in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We have a strong commitment to the territorial integrity and fundamental structure of Bosnia and Herzegovina as a single, sovereign state comprising of 2 entities and Prijenos district. The integrity, unity and sovereignty of Bosnia and Herzegovina is crucial for Turkey. It is also a key element for maintaining peace and stability in the Balkans and beyond. Therefore, we support efforts to improve regional cooperation for prosperity in the region. We also support Bosnia and Herzegovina's progress towards Euro-Atlantic integration. The achievements of Dayton have been remarkable. That said, many things have changed in the last quarter of the century. Therefore, we need to adapt to new realities. And we need to have a better functioning system that will increase the welfare of all citizens of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Dear friends, while looking into the future, we shouldn't forget the past. The suffering of innocent people during the siege of Sarajevo and Srebrenica's genocide are still fresh in our minds. Justice and peace go hand in hand. Accountability serves as a strong deterrent for future crimes and also consolidates peace. Remembering the past and honoring those who lost their lives will remind us that we should protect peace at all costs. Language of hatred, intolerance, culture and ethnic divisions or ultranationalism brings nothing but suffering. Lessons learned from the pains of the past should guide us towards stronger cooperation in the region. We should appreciate our cultural differences. This is our richness. Respecting the other is key for peaceful coexistence. This is true not only for Balkans, but also for wider Europe across the globe. The sufferings of 25 years ago must be a bitter reminder that rising xenophobia, racism, and Islamophobia, especially in Europe, must be prevented. This can only be achieved with strong political leadership that acts with wisdom rather than populism. Turkey, as a member of the Peace Implementation Council Steering Committee, will continue to fully support the maintenance of peace and stability in Bosnia and Herzegovina. The future can be better when we are together. Budućnost je lepša kad smo zajedno. Hvala puno.
The UK remains committed to supporting security, democracy and prosperity in the Western Balkans. And I'm glad today to be commemorating the Dayton Peace Accords, which led to the end of the conflict in Bosnia and Herzegovina and 25 years of peace. The importance of Dayton cannot be overstated. It succeeded in ending the conflict and the accords represent the foundation on which the modern Bosnian state has been built. This anniversary means a great deal to us in the UK, not least because British armed forces were present in Bosnia and Herzegovina before and after Dayton, and too many paid the ultimate sacrifice in their work to build peace. I also have in mind the late Paddy Ashdown. As High Representative, he once remarked that Dayton was Bosnia and Herzegovina's foundation. He understood Dayton's importance in laying the groundwork for a brighter future. But there is much more to do to bring together all the citizens of Bosnia and Herzegovina on the path of Euro-Atlantic integration. Inclusive reforms which improve the lives of all citizens and give them a meaningful say continue to be necessary. The UK will remain your partner as you carry out these difficult but urgent tasks. And I call on all political leaders in this year of anniversaries to promote inclusive dialogue, reject hate speech, and work to overcome the challenges that still exist.
On behalf of the Italian government, I'm pleased to participate to this event, celebrating the 25th anniversary of the General Framework Agreement for Peace. Italy will never forget one of the most tragic periods in the history of Europe, and above all, the innocent victims of those years. The General Framework Agreement for Peace brought an end to fighting and violence, and today we celebrate 25 years of enduring peace in Bosnia and Herzegovina. The Office of the High Representative has continuously supported and strengthened the Constitution and common state institution created with Dayton. We are grateful to the women and men who have served at the OHR for their work over the years. Bosnia has come a long way since then. Time has come for the country to move decisively towards the European Union. Such a strategic goal demands a process of deep and modernizing reforms. Just like during the war, Italy will keep standing next to Bosnia and Herzegovina, supporting the reform process and advocating for the EU enlargement to the Western Balkans. Dayton has brought peace to Bosnia. It is now time to bring and strengthen rule of law, fundamental freedoms, human rights, economic development, transparency and democracy. Younger generations of this country deserve a better future. Much work is awaiting us in the coming months. In these tremendous efforts, the legacy of the OHR as a leader of international assistance to Bosnia and Herzegovina has laid the way to new forms of cooperation, where BiH can finally stand as an independent country in its own right and with its own obligation. We're looking forward to welcoming back Bosnia and Herzegovina in the European family as a partner for security, growth and stability. Thank you very much.
It is my pleasure to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Dayton Peace Agreement with other PIC steering board member countries, international organizations, and successive high representatives for Bosnia and Herzegovina. In today's world, we have unresolved armed conflicts. However, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, peace has been maintained for 25 years thanks to constant effort by all parties based on the Dayton Peace Agreement, and the country is in the process of EU integration. This should be highly appreciated by the international community, together with the significance of the efforts given by the High Representative for Bosnia and Herzegovina, who has been overseeing the implementation of the civilian sector of the Dayton Peace Agreement. From the standpoint to actively contribute to peace and stability of the international community, Japan has provided assistance such as refugee support even since during the large-scale ethnic conflicts which was caused by the breakup of former Yugoslavia after the end of the Cold War. In particular, I would like to emphasize the contributions in the Bosnia-Herzegovina conflict by some Japanese, such as Mr. Akashi Yasushi, Special Representative of the Secretary General of the United Nations, and Dr. Ogata Sadako, the 8th United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, who passed away last year. Based on her experience in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Dr. Ogata Sadako launched the idea of human security as human-centered concept to focus on the people actually living there, provide protection and empowerment, and strengthen security as the paradigm shift from a traditional concept of national security. Based on the concept of human security, Japan has supported reconstruction and development for Bosnia and Herzegovina and improvement of public welfare since the end of the conflict in Bosnia-Herzegovina to this day. Furthermore, in light of the recent situation, Japan launched the West Balkans Cooperation Initiative, which represents our continuous support to inter-ethnic cooperation and efforts toward reform in Bosnia and Herzegovina. As a member of PIC and Steering Board, Japan is determined to actively contribute for peace and stability of Bosnia and Herzegovina and the West Balkan region as a whole.
To the citizens of Bosnia and Herzegovina, as we meet today to mark the 25th anniversary of the Dayton Peace Accords, we congratulate you on your achievement and preservation of peace. The United States and our international partners were proud to play a part in forging that agreement. But we recognize that it is the people of Bosnia and Herzegovina who made the definitive decision to build a future for yourselves, your children, and generations to come. As we mark this milestone of peace, the United States is most focused on the future of Bosnia and Herzegovina over the next 25 years. Bosnia and Herzegovina has the opportunity to realize the promise of peace by fulfilling its Euro-Atlantic potential. This means an improved economy that provides the jobs needed to anchor young people in the country and enable innovation and entrepreneurship. This means improvements in rule of law and countering corruption, as well as local and state governments that reliably provide services to the people of Bosnia and Herzegovina. The international community stands ready to help achieve this future. if Bosnia and Herzegovina's leaders will take the actions to realize it. We encourage Bosnia and Herzegovina's presidency and political party leaders to come together to make real, tangible progress on the steps needed to achieve EU candidate status. This is in the interest of all citizens of Bosnia and Herzegovina. By increasing accountability, improving governance, and bringing its laws in line with European Court of Human Rights decisions, Bosnia and Herzegovina can finally achieve the future its citizens seek. I encourage you to take part in the civic process, press for change, and hold your leaders accountable. Voice to them your hopes for the next 25 years. The Office of the High Representative has played a vital role in advancing stability, functionality, and the institutional capacity needed for Bosnia and Herzegovina to take its place in the Euro-Atlantic community. OHR continues to play a key role in monitoring and facilitating implementation of the Dayton Peace Agreement, so that the country can meet the established criteria to graduate from international supervision. In conclusion, we commend the people of Bosnia and Herzegovina for the peace they celebrate today and encourage all leaders to commit to mutual respect, peace, and reconciliation. We congratulate you for the progress you've made and look forward to the next 25 years, marked by a new chapter with Bosnia and Herzegovina as a member of the Euro-Atlantic community. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, I have the pleasure to address you today on the occasion of the 25th anniversary of the initialing of the General Framework Agreement for Peace in Bosnia and Herzegovina, on behalf of the Foreign Ministry of the Russian Federation. It is impossible to underestimate the significance of this event, the event that marked the end of the bloody conflict in Bosnia and Herzegovina, which lasted for more than 3 years and brought enormous suffering and loss of life to all three people of Bosnia and Herzegovina: Bosniaks, Croats, and Serbs, who for centuries lived here together side by side. The conclusion of the Dayton Peace Agreement and the subsequent period of political settlement, reconstruction, and most important, reconciliation, highlights the significant fact that people of this remarkable country can live in peace and build their future life together. It demonstrates that despite all difficulties, there are no irreconcilable differences that cannot be resolved through dialogue and mutual compromise. 25 years ago, the Dayton Peace Agreement not only stopped the armed conflict, but opened the way for long-term solutions that take into account the interests of all sides. It established peace and security in Bosnia and Herzegovina and the wider region, laid the foundations for stable political, economic, and social development of Bosnia and Herzegovina as a sovereign and independent state. The Dayton Peace Agreement defined the modalities of internal organization of this state, the constitutional status of the two entities, the separation of powers of different levels of authority, guaranteed the equality of the three constituent peoples, and established the mechanisms for the implementation of their rights, including the mechanism for the protection of their vital interests. The Dayton Constitution accommodated the composition of Bosnia and Herzegovina as a multi-ethnic and multi-confessional state, introduced clear and coherent principles of its functioning. 25 years later, this structure remains the basis of Bosnia and Herzegovina's administrative organization, ensuring the necessary checks and balances which govern the interaction of different elements of authority. While by no means being simple, the Dayton state structure is absolutely workable and viable. The Dayton Peace Agreement remains the foundation for the continued successful existence of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Ladies and gentlemen, 25 years ago, the Russian Federation witnessed the signing of the Dayton Agreement. Today, we remain committed to its consistent implementation. As one of the guarantors, we advocate strict observance of the principles of international law which form its core. Any eventual changes to the document can only be made on the basis of consensual agreement of the three constituent peoples and both entities. We are certain that peaceful and prosperous future lies ahead of this country and its peoples, and are prepared to continue working towards this objective together with our partners. Thank you.
It's time to remember there were 3.5 years of a brutal 100,000 people, more than that, lost their lives, genocide, millions forced to flee, enormous physical destruction. And then 3 weeks in Dayton to forge a peace agreement that is rather unique in the recent history of Europe. By necessity, a compromise peace. A peace where no one could really celebrate, but everyone could accept. I remember Alija Izetbegovic said at the time it was the best possible agreement that was possible at that particular time. And then, of course, building peace, which has been going on since then. The Dayton Agreement gave Bosnia a floor, not a ceiling. And if there is one disappointment over these years, it is that the leaders of Bosnia have not been used. All of the possibilities that are within the agreement, within the constitution, and within the process of European integration. Far too many of them have for far too long seen peace more as a continuation of war by other means. And as we look towards the future, I think we will also recognize that it's by working together in Bosnia, in the region, in Europe and wider, that we can build a better world together. We should remember everything that happened and draw the lessons from that and start to build a genuine peace for everyone in Bosnia, in the Balkans, in Europe. That's the legacy of Dayton.
Looking back on 25 years of Dayton implementation warrants a look forward. There have been remarkable achievements, but let's face it, considerable shortcomings remain in this most comprehensive international intervention of our time. While outright war was stopped, life for many citizens in Bosnia-Herzegovina remains precarious. And this was succinctly summarized in the protest slogan in 2017, which reads, Gladni smo na 3 jezika, we are hungry in 3 languages. When I handed over the office to my successor, the late Lord Ashdown, in 2002, it was well agreed to phase out the office of the High Representative by 2006. However, while the military transfer from S4 to U4 was successfully implemented and ICTY has already closed down 2 years ago, the OHR is still around, drastically reduced in size and even more so in its relevance and standing. The combustive, immediate post-war times are long over, and with it, the once crucial role of the Office of the High Representative. This year's 25th anniversary is thus an apt occasion to resolutely embark on a new, and let me call it, cooperative European road. The European Union Special Representative's office in Sarajevo has grown to one of the largest and most powerful European missions worldwide, second in size only to the important OSCE mission in Bosnia. It is my sincere conviction that the next streamlining of the international presence in Bosnia is long overdue. Today, Bosnia is surrounded by European Union members and candidate countries only. The Euro-Atlantic security umbrella has successfully incorporated the region. Now, local ownership and responsibility, including reconciliation and good neighborly relations, must be promoted, rooted in an active civil society engaged in peaceful civil disobedience if necessary. Emigration is no option. When we rightly ask Bosnians to reform their dysfunctional political practices, for which we are in part responsible, we need to have an even more critical look at the outdated and overly complex international presence in Bosnia. Over the past 25 years, the world has changed dramatically. In those 25 years, much has been achieved in Bosnia, but much more needs to be done to overcome the still lingering divisive past. Rest assured, Bosnians and a much maligned country will succeed. They will succeed with the help of its friends in the larger Europe and across the Atlantic. Having met some of the successful young Bosnians in Vienna, I am convinced that the young generation in Bosnia will eventually overcome the brutal legacies of the past and secure a better life for themselves. This is what I wish moj drugi dom.
We all know how, when, and why Dayton Peace Agreement was made. It is nothing new to say about this. We are now 25 years later, and things are not looking promising. I'm following the situation in Bosnia since 1993 and can only repeat, Dayton turned Bosnia into a state which is impossible to govern. Very complicated state structure with several levels of government was intended 25 years ago to safeguard the interests of the three largest ethnic groups in the country. In practice, however, Bosnia stuck in a dead-end road. Ownership doesn't work. International community is not doing the necessary steps. As I was in Dayton, Holbrooke told me that the Dayton Peace Agreement were not made with the intention of leaving the bad situation in Bosnia unchanged. It was supposed to be the basis for gradual progress, with the long-term prospect of the country joining the European Union. The government diplomat Ischinger said later, it was a mistake not to write an obligation in it, to review it after 3 years. We are all clever afterwards, but we need to do something now. Dayton was made to stop the war, not to stay as it is forever. Dayton needs to be changed as it is clearly dysfunctional. So far, however, this has proved to be impossible. No amendment proposal has made to a parliament since April package 2006, because the representatives of the three biggest ethnic groups are unable to agree. Today, many Bosnians, especially in the Federation, are calling for international assistance in Dayton change. If you mention that in the Republika Srpska, you will usually encounter rejection. The Bosnian Serb leaders fear the idea because Republika Srpska was recognized in Dayton as a political entity. Under no circumstances they want to risk its existence being called into question. The development of Bosnia and Herzegovina is being closely followed in Brussels and Berlin. In December last year, the respected German lawyer Reinhard Priebe published an EU report on the status of the rule of law in Bosnia and Herzegovina. The report stresses the need to reform the Bosnian judicial authorities to implement the judgments of the European Court of the Human Rights there, and to strengthen the rule of law as a whole. But all this can only work if there is constitutional reform. The path must finally be cleared for that, and this requires the support of the international community. Bosnia needs a new policy, more interference and impact from steering board, stronger support for the High Representative, more conditionality on the way in implement and change Dayton Constitution. Bosnia cannot do it alone. It is obvious it needs help. We, the international community of Bosnia and Herzegovina, to do this, to help to change Dayton, to help more than in the last 15 years. Do not forget, we still have an OHR and necessary tools for that. We must need to use it. That's a necessary step.
Dear friends, dear people of Bosnia and Herzegovina, poštovani I dragi prijatelji. They say one can leave the Balkans, but the Balkans never leave you. In a way, I'm a living proof of that. Although I left my post as the High Representative and the European Union Special Representative in Sarajevo almost 12 years ago, once again I'm back to deal with the region's most complex challenges. Anniversaries offer an opportunity to take stock of what has been achieved, what worked and what did not, and also to look at the way ahead. We did so in July, when we marked the 25 years since the Srebrenica genocide, and we will do so in mid-December, when we commemorate the 25th anniversary of Dayton Peace Accords. When speaking of Dayton, you often hear bad peace is better than war, or luđačka košulja navučena na Bosnu I Herzegovinu. While there is truth to it, skeptic voices do not speak about the peace itself, but rather to the constitutional order with its inter-ethnic checks and balances and the administrative lines agreed in November 1995 in Dayton, Ohio. I can still relate to both. Dayton is far from perfect, but it stopped the worst bloodshed in Europe since the end of the Second World War. And it was first and foremost a chance to build together a common and better future for all people in the country. One of the key lines of the Dayton Accords was, and still is, parties have agreed to seek. It shows that from day one, the responsibility for rebuilding the society and building the state was supposed to lie in the hands of Bosnia and Herzegovina's elected representatives. The sole role of the international community was foreseen as ensuring compliance and assisting where appropriate. The local ownership, or if you wish, less Dayton, more Brussels, should never become a dilemma. Looking at the implementation of Dayton, the biggest success is its military parts. Merging 3 separate armies and police forces, while dissolving numerous paramilitaries, was a gigantic task. And we must commend the creation of Bosnia and Herzegovina Armed Forces and its Joint Command, the Ministry of Defense, and the adoption of the defense law. The same way we do when we speak about the Bosnia and Herzegovina Central Bank, common currency, license plates, state symbols, and customs reforms. And while these are commendable achievements, 25 years later, not everything we hoped for has happened. The inter-entity demarcation is still not completed, and the cemetery on Ostra Luka near Orašje is one of many reminders. And having in mind the recent local elections, as looking forward to the first in Mostar after 12 years, we can still hope to see the one central register of voters in Bosnia-Herzegovina at some stage. Maybe after the nationwide census that is supposed to happen in 2023. So 25 years after Dayton, a lot of work remains unfinished. And despite several serious attempts, the Dayton Constitution is yet to be changed, reflecting the judgments of international and domestic courts. Dear all, Bosnia and Herzegovina deserves and needs a positive and credible vision to which its people, regardless of their respective identities, can relate. And as they say, the future is now. I can attest to this from my own time in Bosnia-Herzegovina, where the support for the European idea and a European Bosnia and Herzegovina was overwhelming. This support does not know ethnic or entity lines. Bosnia and Herzegovina is united in its European vision. And this is why I see it as the one top priority for all local politicians. They owe it to their people. And we, the European Union, stand ready to help every step along the way. Thank you for your attention.
Each of the speakers we have just heard has made a contribution to implementing the peace agreement and serving the people of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And each, I'm certain, would agree that the country has not yet freed itself entirely from the legacy of the past. People, especially young people, are leaving Bosnia and Herzegovina in big numbers, and that's not just because there is a lack of economic opportunity. They are leaving because they simply do not want to put up any longer with crime and corruption, with the lack of rule of law. For example, more than a decade ago, the European Court of Human Rights ordered Bosnia and Herzegovina to adjust its constitution to ensure that all citizens, including those who do not identify themselves as Serb, Croat or Bosniak, enjoy full civil rights. The court ruling, like many others, unfortunately, has never been implemented. Meanwhile, political leaders have accorded undue respect to individuals who have been tried and found guilty of war crimes, including genocide, crimes against humanity, mass murder, and rape. This is unacceptable. Ladies and gentlemen, but change is possible. It can be delivered within the Dayton system. Real progress was made in the first 10 years, and it can be made in the coming years. Let us open a new chapter in 2021, next year. Dayton gives no one the right to challenge the country or its people. It gives every citizen the right to build a decent life with dignity and security. It is time to fulfill the longing that the citizens of Bosnia and Herzegovina have for a future grounded in prosperity and stability, a future secured through good governance, through the reassertion of fairness and decency, the true values of Bosnia and Herzegovina and all its peoples. As a new generation of political leaders could deliver positive change, the Dayton signatories must remain focused on implementing the agreement. That means supporting the people of Bosnia and Herzegovina, not one particular group of BiH citizens, so that all can move forward together. We will move together in 2021. Europeans, together with the new administration in Washington in place, will have a one-time opportunity to turn a new page. People are still around who know Bosnia and Herzegovina very well. People are still around who remember Dayton very well, but there are less and less of them. Therefore, let us use and seize the opportunity in 2021. It will be, in this constellation, maybe the last opportunity. Let us, therefore, build on the legacy of the Dayton-Paris Accord. Let us all work on one Bosnia and Herzegovina for all.
Dame i gospodo, vaše ekscelencije, cijenjeni gledatelji koji ste nas pratili u direktnom prijenosu u programu televizije Bosne i Hercegovine, hvala vam što ste bili uz nas ove noći kada smo u Sarajevskoj vijećnici svečano obilježili 25. godišnjicu Daytonskog mirovnog sporazuma. Doviđenja i laku noć.